Okay, when it comes to operating your Maxx sawmill, there's a lot of unique things about this one. But as you can see here, I've started a log, rolled it up on. It's about a 18-inch log on the fat end, and I got the outer bark 1.5 inches or so shaved off. And the whole idea of the first cut is to make a flat surface that the log can lay on, and that makes it so that you can make an even parallel cut on the opposite side. And one way to avoid using a toe board on a sawmill like this is, you know, every log is going to have some taper to it, but one way you can take out some of the taper without using a toe board is to put the fat end of the log well off the first bunk. You can see here, I could have put the end on that bunk there, but I had it overhang quite a bit. And as you can see, a big chunk of the taper is hanging below the bunk. And normally you'd say, oh, that's not good, it's not going to be even, but no, that's exactly what I want, because that's actually removing a bunch of the taper on this first cut. Now once I roll this log over to the opposite side, I'm going to put the end of it on that bunk there so that we're even all the way along, and then the next cut will be exactly parallel to this top cut, and we'll remove a lot of the taper just with the outer bark cut off of that. So that's my first tip for this video. All right, we've moved on. We've cut 2 parallel sides on the log, so we know the 2 cuts are parallel. And now we're moving on to the third side. This is another tip. Get one of these squares. In fact, a larger one would be even better, but I bought this cheapest one I could find, Harbor Freight, plastic, so I know that it can just lay on the ground out here with the sawmill. And you can see here, even though it looks straight to me, it is not. And test on all the different bunks. Way off. Way off. And you can still adjust it a little bit when it's in the clamps. Just to keep that in mind, get it exactly straight before you do your third side. All right, another operations note. As you can see, these little square guys have a welded on knob that keeps them at the height where you can still cut an inch piece of lumber off the bottom of the log and not hit them. The longer log stops have an angled cut on the top, and before you are cutting your planks and you're cutting your first 3 sides of the log, you want the angle to be toward the log, so that as you turn it and run the log up against the log stop, there's the minimal resistance. And in fact, I'll show you later that you can unsharpen that edge so it doesn't carve into your log as you spin it up against that log stop. So for now that we're about to make our 4th cut and start cutting planks, then I'm gonna switch that around, spin it around so that the sharp edge is toward the log, and I'm going to put it at just an inch off the bed so that I can cut as many planks as possible before stopping. Okay, now that I got these ready to go, I want to smooth this out so it doesn't dig into the log so much. comes to having a larger format saw, such as the SM-32, means you can get much larger logs onto your mill, and that's obviously the case with this one. This isn't even challenging the limits of this sawmill, but if we look at the width of this, I've cut off all the worst of it, and we still got 15 inches there, and it had a significant banana aspect to it. As you can see, it I had to cut the two ends of the banana off to kind of even this cant out. But so right now I have to decide what I'm going to do with this thing, and I've got significant weighing on the edges still, so I could take it down further and make smaller stock and have no weighing on it, or I could have some pieces with a little bit of weighing on it and call it acceptable for my use. But probably the most easily done is to go ahead and take some more off this side and the more off the banana side, and I wouldn't have a 15-inch stock anymore, 15-inch wide. It'd be more like 12 or 13, but then it wouldn't have any weight on it, and that's probably what I'm going to do. But that involves a lot of shenanigans and moving this gigantic log around, because it's green. This is a green log, and it weighs a ridiculous amount. That's what you get into when you get one of these larger format mills, is the ability to do incredibly heavy logs. And so what do you need to manage that? And in my experience, well, of course, the number one thing would be some sort of machine to do some work for you, like lifting the log off. In maneuvering this thing, I dropped it off the side of the mill once, and if I hadn't had the tractor just pick it up and put it back on, that would have been a large bummer. But another tool that I would suggest you get is this is a pry bar. I'm holding on to it. Let me stick it in the ground. But that's a pry bar that you can get from someplace like Harbor Freight, and it runs like $40 for a big old pry bar. And scooting the log around on the mill, it is significantly difficult without leverage. So that pry bar is super good for that. And plus it's only $40, so I'm not ruining something expensive if I bend it. And this guy right here, yes, there's a log turner that comes with your mill, but this one is more specialized in the fact that it has a pointy tip on it. So I find that much more useful. I use it to leverage the bark off of a log if it's got loose bark, and then every time I'm done using it, I can just stab it into the ground and I'm done with it. And it's always out there and available for me and quite visible. So get you one of them off. I got that one off Amazon for like $50. So those are some very useful things. And then when it comes to your log, you can see I've cut off some very large chunks to get rid of the live edge, and I've got a large one here that I'm going to put back on the mill and edge it, to make it a 1 by or actually it's a 1.5, so it's a 6/4 by like 8-inch. Well, I'll get out of it maybe 10. So I'm willing to re-edge some boards, go through the extra effort to pull some extra lumber out of a log. But in general, I bought this mill to recover some lumber out of our firewood. We're having to remove a lot of trees for fire mitigation, and it just seemed a shame to just turn 100 trees into firewood when there's so much usable lumber inside them. And then I can be extra aggressive with taken off the live edge and taken off the weighing, and then that pile just becomes firewood. You know, it was going to be firewood to begin with, so I'll be happy with making a big chunk of it into firewood to end with, right? That's why I have that UBC basket back there, is to just throw all this extra stuff up, cut it up with a chainsaw and throw it in there, and that's firewood. So just a few extra thoughts for dealing with much larger stock on this size of a mill, and a couple extra tools that are great for that.